Oh my god. A monster. I suppose you could call me that, the thing said. I'm not in any of the planet's major phyla. What do you want with me? I asked it. I suppose I should call it him. Nothing. I came here to take someone home. He died here years ago, but we couldn't retrieve the body until now. I was awestruck. I don't think I need to explain the ramifications of what I had just seen and heard, or the many avenues of speculation it opened up. It just changed everything I thought I knew. How did you get in here? I asked. I was expecting to hear something about magic, parallel universes, folded space, or other such wonders. His answer was, through the dryer vent, across the basement ceiling, through the heat register, and over the desk that's blocking it. That made sense, because that register was one of several that wasn't connected to ducts, and simply led to cavities in the basement's open ceiling. More of my dad's unfinished work. I'm sorry to intrude on your bedroom, but I can't get to the body without going through here. Where's this body? We're not sure, but we've narrowed it down. Getting it to its rightful resting place will be harder than finding it. Throughout the conversation, I thought about turning on the overhead light and getting my camera out of my desk. I never did because I was afraid to leave my bed. The monster seemed friendly enough, but I thought he might turn nasty if he thought I was going to impede his mission or jeopardize his secrecy. There was also the fact that I had woken up with an extremely pronounced and persistent erection, and would have been obvious once the covers were out of the way. So I stayed in bed while my guest went about his task. The bunched-up monster startled me when he began to move in strange ways. I guess he was looking around, but there wasn't any continuous motion, and the jerks and shudders weren't localized to any one part. His whole body would twitch and reposition itself every few seconds, as if I were watching a video that was randomly fast-forwarded every so often. I was startled even worse when he suddenly made a move for the window. I was interested in seeing what he looked like, but his speed and the low light were both working against me. He fell out of the chair and rapidly scuttled to where he was adhering to the window next to my bed. Scuttled might be the wrong word, since it reads like a sound effect, and this was without any noticeable sounds. But it's the best way I can describe the lightning-quick movement of this thing that was almost all legs. When he was on the window, he was behind the curtains, so I didn't see many details as he unlatched the window and forced it open. He accomplished the latter task by scrunching himself up like an inchworm, then straightening out. This might seem funny to read, but it was unnerving in person. Every one of this thing's motions made it seem scarier. Sometimes it's hard to write him instead of it. After opening the screen, he had scuttled backwards into the hallway, turning himself around in a quick fluid motion, and disappeared into the bathroom. I soon heard the distinct, gravelly sound of something moving inside the wall. It's a sound I've gotten to know well, both from my dad's handiwork and from the mice and bats that have been in the walls over the years. At least, I had thought they were all mice or bats. Again, I considered fetching the camera, but the monster was back before I knew it, giving me a little start. He was carrying a cigar-shaped bundle on his back. He paused in the middle of the floor, probably thinking about how he was going to carry this outside, and the final foot or so of his body was in the light. I was finally able to see something of this monster, but my attention was drawn to the thing poking out the cloth wrapping. It was a silvery gray head about the size and shape of a furless male raccoon's head. The mouth was sort of like a wildcat's, and there was a mosaic of scales where the nose should have been. Appendages growing from the sides of its lower jaw had broken off, forming stumps of various lengths. There were 2 pairs of gaping holes where I assumed the eyes had been. They must have been much smaller than I thought, just like so many other things I remembered from my childhood. It didn't look scary at all. It looked sad. This monster, which probably had family and friends, had died far away from home, and sat rotting in our wall instead of being laid to rest properly. He had never meant me any harm, but I had hated him. I got a little choked up. "I'm sorry if any of us have frightened you," the live monster said to me before he moved along. "We bear no ill will toward the educated chordates. We wish you the best of everything." I didn't know what to say. I did finally find my tongue just before the monster disappeared into the night with his departed comrade. "Nobody's going to believe me," I told him. He paused on the windowsill. "I'll see what I can do about that." With those words, he crawled out of the house, closing the window and screen behind him. Once he was gone, I walked into the bathroom and used the toilet without fear. I smiled as I transformed the water's calm surface into a foamy yellow tempest. This room would never be dangerous again. Better still, I understood that it had never been dangerous in the first place. The next morning there was a card laying on my nightstand. It was a photograph of one of the monsters resting on a bed of rocks on a sunny seashore. I turned it over. The back read, "Hotspot 11, CJR Boygens, 30949-53. Below the English was a line of blocky hieroglyphics, and another of tangled squiggles and circles. I now held in my hands the proof I had never had before. My mom was in the bathroom, but I couldn't wait. I pounded on the door a few seconds after I heard the shower shut off. Mom, I've got something to show you. It's incredible. Are you decent?" When she let me in, I held up the photograph. She adjusted the fuzzy white bath towel she was wearing and leaned over to get a closer look, trying to focus her contact-free eyes. She didn't say anything. I stared at the photograph too as I told her about my monster encounter the night before. Then I realized something that made me stop my story mid-sentence. The monster in the photo was long and thin, and his body shone in the sunlight. That much matched how I pictured the plumbing monster. This monster was an orange-tan color, not far from human flesh. Besides the mammal or reptile-like head and the unfathomable shapes at the other end, its body was entirely covered in armor, divided up into segments. Each segment had a pair of spindly legs like on my daddy-long-legs, and many had a shorter secondary pair with fingers, suckers, or both. All in all, it matched the bits of the monsters I had glimpsed the night before, but bore almost no resemblance to the ones I'd spent most of my life fearing. The most troubling part was that it had 4 blue eyes with round black pupils. I hadn't seen a trace of that bathroom beast in years, so I couldn't be sure I remembered exactly what it looked like. But that diamond-pupiled eye from my memories haunted me. That had to be accurate. "This isn't the right monster," I mumbled quietly as my brain soaked up the disquieting implications. "This just proves that the house's monsters are real, and the plumbing one is still at large." My mom smiled, looking genial and maybe a little condescending. "Oh, sweetie," she began, "I know for a fact there's no monster in the plumbing." "How?" I asked with wavering voice. "Because," she replied in stern tone. For a moment, I thought that all she had... "Because," she replied in a stern tone. For a moment, I thought that was all she had to say, but she continued to explain her reasoning. "It crawled out of there years ago." I just stood there dumbfounded. Is this a joke? I wondered. Is there more to it? The silence was suddenly broken by a gurgling and churning noise. It was louder than any of the strange noises that normally permeated the house, and it sounded even less like it belonged in a human dwelling. But it wasn't coming from the toilet, the tub, the sink, or any of the walls around me. It was emanating from the middle of my mom. I should have looked away when she let the towel drop to the floor, but somehow I couldn't. I was paralyzed, eyes wide, as my new stepmother turned around, bent over, and placed a hand on either side of her round bottom. With her fingers pressing into her flesh, turning the rosy post-shower hue into a deathly white, she pulled her cheeks outward. Her anus puckered, domed, and widened. I could see something that didn't belong. The orifice grew wider and wider, finally stopping at 4 inches in diameter. Much wider than that was a partly extruded sphere. In an instant, its molasses surface retracted to reveal the fiery orange eye from my traumatic childhood memories. It's in my plumbing now.